Okay, so you've got your ground done. The next thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about composition before we sketch in. Take a look at your reference photos. This is the one I'm looking at. I'm got our main one, which is what this is, and then there's another one I gave you. There's a few I gave you, but there's one that's got some clouds in it. But take a look at this one right now. So a couple of quick things about composition is that there's a thing called a rule of thirds, basically, where you don't want to divide a work in half. And if you've taken any photography, you learn that as well. You want to make your horizon either a third from the bottom or a third from the top. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And for example, this picture here, which is our reference picture, the horizon is kind of in the middle. So you will need to decide before you do your sketch if you want to have more water or more sky. So I think the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to choose to make my, I'll probably, for the demonstration, I will make, I'm going to bring it down a little bit. So my horizon, or let's say which is going to be where my trees start, match the river, is going to be towards the bottom. So I'm using charcoal here, but you can use a pencil as well, either one. Anything that you can see with. This is going to be a very simple sketch. So I'm doing a rough here. We're going to be painting over this. This is my land. My land is going to come out here. I'm looking at this. And then I've got a few trees here. There's going to be some distant trees. And then there's going to be some trees close up. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about, and it doesn't matter, this is really rough because we're going to be painting over all of this. What this does, just give you an idea of where your areas are going to be. I'm going to have sky, water, close-up land, and some distant foliage. That's going to be my start. So when you're using photographs, we're going to be using photographs as a reference, which is exactly what they should be used for. We're not going to copy the photographs. One important thing to know about photographs is that they don't always give accurate shadows. If you've ever taken a picture of a sunset and then you look at your picture and it's really dark, or the darks are darker, that's kind of an example. The eye works a bit differently than the eye of the camera. But what I like to do, and what we're going to be doing here, and many artists will do this, is work from a bunch of different reference pictures. The other thing that we're going to be doing, and talking about choosing, you choose what to take and put in your painting, just like you choose what to put in your days and what you choose to put in your life. And if something doesn't look quite right, you don't need to put it in there. For example, this tree here is kind of clumpy, and so I might choose to break that up. But we'll get into that kind of stuff when we're laying in our foliage. Let's see. The other thing to remember about composition is that it's linear, meaning that you can see how we're dividing up our areas like this. But it also, composition is influenced by the values. Like when we do this sky, if this sky is all very similar color across, then it might be kind of boring to the composition. I'm going to need to put some clouds or some gradations in this sky. For example, if I have dark down in here in the water, I might want to put some dark up in here to balance it. We want to have our painting be balanced but not boring. So that's our main takeaway for composition. So what I've done is I've sketched this in, and then I'm going to get my palette ready. And so what we're going to be using is these colors to start with, and about this much. I'm going to hold my palette up here. I'm just using a paper plate right now. It's a foam plate, actually. And it can be the same palette you use to do your other stuff. So you can wipe it off, or if there's dried paint on it, then you can just put new paint right over it. Or use another one. It's totally up to you. So we've got some white, blue, yellow. I've got some Naples yellow on here, which is kind of Oh, it's really a cool color. One of my favorites. It's a yellow that's not as bright as this lemon yellow. Burnt sienna, again, same as we used before, and a tiny bit of red. We're going to be mixing our greens here. We're not going to use green out of the tube. At least not right now. We might use green out of the tube for details if you've got green. And then the other thing I've got handy is my extender, which I may use a tiny bit of that as I get into it, but I'm just going to see how water works. There's two things you can use to thin out and make your paint more workable. One is this stuff, which I had asked you to get if you could, and the other is just plain water. One great thing about acrylics is that it's kind of a great entryway into painting because it's got certain attributes that oil does and that watercolor do. So if you can master acrylics, you're going to love oil, and if you go to watercolor, you'll already know a lot of the same techniques. But we're going to be using our paint thin and thick during this class. So get your palettes ready and let's start painting.